Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for 100,000 Poets for Change and a tribute to Michael Rothenberg. I would like to first call on Suzi, who has an invocation for us as well as a poem. So, Suzi, go ahead.
Invocation. I didn't know that I knew Michael until even after. There he was, in the backyard of an old house, now cafe, a sunset through some oak branches, a river nearby, but no ships. And then, as voice, as on camera together, and now a neutrino we hearken to by only the atomic number of your name. Your name. So mote your name.
Would you like to read a piece too, as well? In addition,
we have a woman who crept over a sleeping man. I can come back later.
Okay. Okay. Lily Swan. I didn't ask for introductory passages because I wanted to keep the focus on Michael and 100,000 Poets for Change. But I can say that Lily is a fantastic poet. I've just come to know a tad, and she was recently inducted as Beat Poet Laureate of India. And I've been on one other Zoom for her, and I was very impressed with her reading. So I would like to ask Lily to read for us now.
Thank you, Belinda, and a warm good morning from the north of India to all of you. And with respect to Michael, I'd like to read a tiny poem which he wrote in 1998, May 12th, and it's called Two Worlds. If you allow me, everyone, here it goes. Two worlds. The amber tongue contains the carcass of an ant. Our thoughts crucified with ruby nails, hammered flush against the expatriate utterances of stolen voices. Hemming, pawing, planning, damning, rivers too big to succumb to the pharmacy. Somewhere there's a way back, sure, but where's that place? It was hell. Two divided worlds we walked, both of us. Who never knew it well, wrote our last will with hindsight. The future will not rest. We didn't do a very good job learning the new each other, like heron and crane. And to this very day, they go to each other to propose, but they never get married. Pour wine over brimming lip of glass, splotch white tablecloth pressed with blues, argue out blame, say goodnight in tears. Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. So, if you say I can read out one of mine, Belinda?
Yes.
Okay, so this is called The Gaping Ether. The Gaping Ether. You never left the periphery of my world, living like the alien ally, pretending to be lost, never uttering a syllable out of line, keeping a safe distance in virtual space. A haughty silence stretching for months, resounding like cymbals in mountain monasteries. Accidents occur only on roads. In lives, it's all preordained. The rich tapestry woven with roses. biding their time before the deadly strike. The cobra hoods every now and then, shoveling mud into yawning graves. I pine for a caressing look that heals, and wait patiently with unblinking intensity, straining to hear those perfect, sweet nothings, craning my neck for that glimpse of love, for lives lived on constant tiptoe through birth cycles entwined in the gaping ether, for life cycles entwined in the gaping ether. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Benito Villa, would you like to go next from Mexico?
Sure. Didn't have mine just all set here. So I'm going to read a poem that it's going to pop up here in a second. That Belinda took a liking to, and it was inspired by something said by Wavy Gravy. It's called "Kissing Builds Up Your Mouth," and it goes something like this. Kissing builds up your mouth. The people most opposed to escapism are jailers. The poem is more than a series of words strung together to sound nice or make someone feel good. The 9 billion names of God float adrift in a conscious soup under the influence of an outmoded way of perceiving the world. Take root. Feel the dark of the new moon. Plant trees if for no other reason to be kind to those who come next. Plug in. Feel the flow of knowing right now. Make art if for no other reason than to be a window for light to reflect off of. Tune in, slow the beat until the hum heals. Write if for no other reason than to have your passion go where it needs to go. Jump rope rhymes, a cake in the rain, one for the baby who sucks his thumb, one for the bubble that's sure to come. My cat looks at me like there's a bird singing inside of me. Speak what makes you wow. Why are you here? 1, 2, 3 to have fun. 1, 2, 3, 4 to tell the truth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to sweep away the nastiness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to learn, to teach, and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to play, 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 and keep playing. Every monkey is different, and any monkey can lend a hand. Tyranny releases its hold only to come back again. Oppression, injustice, and cruelty have no measure, no standard, no units, and no sonnets. We have no idea the influence we have on each other, but like planets and moons and stars, we bend space. We have gravity. A glass tumbles, resists definition. There's no crash, no applause. I trust my compass. The closer to home, the easier the way. I bow, greet, salute the person I am becoming. I bow, greet, salute the person I have been. Shabazz, 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 the open wing. I am. Relying on a measure of time is overwhelming unless I learn to slow down the crush, the moment, the intensity, the show, the need, the emotion without resisting any of it. Being clever is nothing. Being wet is. I ripple, I spiral. I wear my incomplete knowledge of the true nature of time and space with absolutely no sense of which thoughts, which actions make or don't make a difference. The poem is the word bouncing off the page into the ear, across the heart, and into the feet, your favorite dance waiting for the sound. Bitterness is not a flavor in the love store. It's not even a topping. Forgiveness is available in sprinkles, swirls, cones, and even comes in throwaway cups.
All right. Thank you. What was that? Being clever is nothing. Being wet is. Wow. Okay. Lynn Alexander, would you like to go next? I understood you knew Michael personally.
Well, I met him years ago, and we did a reading in San Francisco, I guess about 10 years ago. Terry and Michael came, and it was a wonderful evening. And there's also a book, World of Change, that a lot of us contributed to by David Magdalene. And there's work in there as well. And it's something that I recently took down from my shelf. So I did meet them, and it was, I was fortunate to be able to participate in a lot of the events for 100,000 Poets for Change. So I also wanted to just really fast, if you don't mind, wanted to show you. So there we go.
Great. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So just because that's special to me, because that's Michael with my daughter. So years ago. So, I thought it was kind of special to kind of remember, because we did do 100,000 Poets for Change for kids one year. So I wanted to start by reading, I'll do something of mine, but I wanted to read something by Michael, since we're honoring, the amazing legacy and work that he did. It's called Two Worlds. The amber tongue contains the carcass of an ant. Our thoughts crucified with ruby nails, hammered flush against the expatriate utterances of stolen voices, hemming, hawing, planning, damning, rivers too big to succumb to the pharmacy. Somewhere there's a way back, sure, but where was that place? It was health. Two divided worlds we walked, both of us. Who never knew it well, wrote our last will with hindsight, the future will not rest. We didn't do a very good job learning the new each other. Like heron and crane, and to this very day, they go to each other to propose, but never get married. Pour wine over brimming lip of glass, splotch white tablecloth pressed with blues, argue out blame, say midnight in tears. That's by Michael. And yeah. So thank you for letting me share that. And if it's okay, I'll do one or two of mine and then be quiet for the evening. Bottles of regret, something she said, it stuck with me. What will the grief of me teach you? We commune with our moon mother, chasing drapes of linen for the throne. We step out from the shadows in found forms. We reach across the kneading. We search with our bones. We reach, we lay logs across the road. We rise, we form, we fall, we meet the water. We cross as current east-west, we ebb. We stretch through latitudes, retreat and return. We crest, we surge, the urgent traverse. We find the silences in storms. We rise in their eyes, in the iris mother blue blues of ocean sky, to the pupil pulled to vanish as to a black hole. We reach across the kneading. We search with our bones. We trench beneath us, boring into earth. Coring from her crust, we pull from the land. We set apart a pillar, obelisk, a monument for the shore. Banded with the ages, striping of chronology, striations of extinctions, we measure the slivers of women, men, them, civilizations, eras of words, the slice of war. Set apart beside the ocean, pillar, testament, monument to our destruction. Obelisk, we've made this for our moon. We pool, we commune with our moon mother. We crest, we surge. East, west, we ebb the urgent traverse. We reach across the kneading. We search with our bones.
Thank you very much. Beth Copeland, I understand that you knew Michael personally. Would you like to go next? Let's see, Beth, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Okay. I just had to unmute myself. I want to just, instead of reading a poem, I want to just talk about Michael and my friendship with him. Wow. I lived in the Blue Ridge Mountains and moved here in 2019. And my house, my property came in addition to my own house. There's a little tiny cabin next to it which I rent out to poets and writers and, artists who maybe want a quiet place where they can work. And Michael was, I believe, my first guest. If not my first, he was my second guest. And so I got to know him pretty well while he was here for a week, working on his poetry and also doing a lot of artwork. I think he was really working on his art more than his writing during that particular visit. At that time, I would let the poets, I would offer dinner, for a slightly, for a nominal fee if they wanted to come over and have dinner. And so Michael had dinner with me several nights during his stay. And at the time, he was really still grieving the death of his son. And so we became pretty close, because I was going through it was a transitional time for me as well. And we were both kind of fragile, and, we would share our stories with each other. But something happened that was actually, it seems funny to me now, but at the time it was not so funny. And I had to go out of town one day and stay overnight. I was giving a reading out of town, and so I left. And when I came back the next day, I found out that Michael had become locked out of the tiny cabin. And at that time, I was new to this whole business of renting out, tiny cabins, and I had no idea that I should have had a lockbox with a spare key in it. And Michael had to crawl in the window. And it was, everything in the tiny cabin is tiny, including the window, which is about, I think, 15 by 18 inches, and he's not a big man, but he's bigger than I am. And I look at that window and I think, I don't think I could get through that window. And I just don't understand how he managed to do it, So when I got back and he told me that, I was just, I felt so terrible that I hadn't, prepared for that, and that had happened to him. And I knew it was probably pretty traumatic when it was happening. But instead of being angry about it, well, the first thing he said was get a lockbox, obviously, which I did, but then he drew this picture that he ended up giving me a copy of it. And I hope you can see it. There's sort of a glare on it, but this is the window. And this is a river, there's a tributary of the New River that runs near my house. And so he added that and some autumn trees. But the part that's most interesting is he took his key and he traced it. And but I think what's so telling about Michael is that he told me, he said, I traced your key, but I changed the notches on it because I wanted to make sure that nobody could copy and, make a copy of the key from his drawing. In spite of all of that, he was concerned about having somebody break into my cabin. He was just that kind of person where he was always thinking about other people. And after he left, he continued, he would message me poems and ask for my opinion, which was really flattering, because he is so prolific and so talented. And they were always so complete. They just seemed to be fully formed, and I really couldn't offer much in the way of critique. I would just say, these are wonderful, Michael. And he would say, really, you think so? He did not have any kind of an ego. And he second guessed his work just as much as every other poet does, And when he found out that he had cancer, he told me not to tell anyone. And so, of course, I didn't. And I found out afterward that he had told many friends the same thing. And again, I think the reason was that he wanted to be able to tell all of his friends individually instead of having people find out secondhand, from another source. And, the last thing he sent me was the introduction to the anti-atomic bomb song. And he was again asking, do you think this is okay? And I said, Michael, it's a poem in itself. If you've read that book and you've seen that introduction, it is a poem. And that's just the kind of person he was. And, I could go on and on, but if I do, I'll probably start to cry. So that's what I wanted to share about my friend Michael, and I miss him.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Joe Kidd, and then following Sheila Burke. Joe, I think you're still there.
We're here.
All right. Would you like to share about Michael or read a poem or both? Go ahead.
Well, we'll do a little bit of each. I want to add one thing to what Beth was talking about. And, a cat can get through a space the same width as its whiskers. So I imagine if Michael's beard could fit through the window, the rest of him could follow through. Anyway, that came to my mind while you were talking. Sheila and I have been active and involved with 100,000 Poets for Change from day one. The very first one was in 2011. I remember standing on a street corner playing my saxophone. It was not in the rain, thank God. We've been to some pretty odd places during our celebrations. One was on a jet plane in the middle of the Atlantic on our way to London. One was in the battlefield of Gettysburg. So I know someone here is said they were from Eastern Pennsylvania. And some not so exotic, some just down on the corner in a gazebo or whatever. Wherever we are, and we travel a lot, we tour a lot, so we end up in these places on the days that we're able to celebrate the gatherings. But we've always had a number of people join in, even if they didn't know what we were doing, they would become involved in it. And it's a powerful movement. It's not going to end. It's just going to keep growing. And we're just really happy and proud to be part of it. I'm going to read a poem that I've never read before. And I'm going to just read it right now. It starts like this. Who are you? All that is left is what is right, and the world is full of things half-eaten, things that smell funny, things that make weird noises, things like old poets with white hair, some with white beards and some with not. Others like to read their poetry. It makes them feel secure. It makes them feel smart. It makes them feel loved. It makes them smell funny and make weird noises. Thich Nhat Hanh was an old poet. No hair, no beard. A real poet writes with his hands and his feet, or her hands and feet. And they have blisters to prove it. And so, books are born and books die. Some young and some get old, just like the poets who write in them. It's a fact. Think of all the invisible money that nobody has. just a number, a street sign, or a minor chord. A true poet does not consider the ending. A priest falls asleep in the middle of his rosary. He wakes up in the morning and picks up where he left off, a bead still between his fingers. That is poetry. The poet sleeps with his poetry, wakes it up in the middle of the night, holds it in his arms, taking loving liberties. That's what liberty boils down to, ain't it? The freedom to think and then express those thoughts. That's what poetry does, I'm sure. That's what Yeats did, and Rimbaud too. Just stay up all night until the ink runs out, and it is always nighttime. The hours of song and romance and visions and the horrors of poetry. Spirits nocturnal join in. They pick their favorite poets to haunt and whisper to. Silent conversations, hand language, interpretations, the poet's body disintegrating, bones dissolving, coming alive. How does it feel to grow wings? Is it true? Maybe someday in bed, but not alone. The poet dies each morning with his stories and his actors. Wide awake until the end. You can sleep tomorrow. Sleep when your hand is crippled and cramped. Sleep when there is no more ink left in the world. Sleep when you are all gathered together underground.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you very much. Sheila, you have something to share with us?
I do. This is called The Shunning. I've shunned and I've been shunned. And I can tell you it cuts like a knife, deep and wide, burns like a soldering iron, cauterizing the tide of an unhealthy flow, a letting of blood, discovery of the need and the time to let go. The older I get, the better I see, if not with my eyes, certainly with my heart, the cost of discernment, the need for disconcernment. Self-preservation. It's not good to be too nice, too long. Be nice to yourself for your own protection. A holy consecration. Look, learn, listen. Don't wait for sweat to glisten. Lean in, scrutinize. Time to revolutionize. Don't just go along when you know it's wrong. Shun that which needs it. Embrace that which feeds it. A better way. Namaste.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we'll come back around to Suzi. Would you like to share a poem?
Yes, thank you. Let me turn my ring light up a second. So it's getting dark. I am in Florida. And yes, I knew Michael personally. And it was very nice to have a sense of someone, I got to see this thing, in my state who is part of a poetry tribe there that had been part of my life all my life. He was part, there's just part of there's a fragile poetry network. And people are part of your life in a way that is inevitable. And then I am in Florida. I live in the Ocala National Forest. And I'd been a teacher, public school teacher. And then when the Parkland and 100,000 Poets for Change became an issue, and he was going to do an event for it. I wrote a poem specifically for him, which then became part of a dedicated book to 100,000 Poets for Change, and it needs fixing. There's more, whatever. And it is the poem I reference in the book that we are celebrating, both as this memorial to him and this launch at the same time. So, and I'd like to dedicate it to his memory. The book is dedicated to him. I have poems after poems after poems dedicated to someone who at some point or other I consider to be some sort of distant cousin or family. I've read it before, but this is for you, Michael, is a kind of a cottage. Big guns. I have witnessed the boy with the koi tattoo throwing 3-tie Timothy into my more battered Ford. He has big guns. I see their naked movement. 2. I have listened to my neighbors blow up a couple $100 in sing-song rockets and ammo. They shoot their big guns. It upsets the horses and chickens. I have to tell them again that some people are stupid and sad and brutal. 3. And then one night, the last moon of winter comes across. There's a man in my bed. My cheekbone to his biceps. He has big guns. 4. I used to work horse farms, even racehorse babies. You get agile with a pitchfork, a tractor. You get big guns. 5. I only have 5 minutes before I return to the cloud. So what happens when pi is translated from integers into alphabet? The circle unclosed is a spiral. It's always dawn and twilight and noon and now in the rainbow forest. When the machines are silent, small birds sing across space. It is spring on our ancient sandbar, and we ought to emerge from our frozen grass and amnesia. A hawk has a soprano of 5 notes and a sense of the world equal to ours, but utterly hers. There are too many of us, and we forget broken men in dark rooms. We refuse to hear the crow calling. In our cowardly caverns, we masturbate, we invent machines, and when we go among each other, we are blind to all but our monstrous dreams, our metaphors of demons. There's the sound of bird feet on the porch roof. Then the power of those wings in her search for seeds. Her flight is casually Top Gun. I hear the cardinal's incandescent refrain, a mourning dove, an airplane, the machines churning above, shitting chemicals. And the auditory landscape is solace, is sanity, lest we forget as we swell ourselves, this dove's 6 notes sliding. So shout out to all y'all children. Every day is now a test in that bitch class called life skills. The top score goes to elegant music and allusions to historically good manners. If these squiggles translate into audibles, let yourself listen. Breathe in the world. The horror is in the machines, the big guns, the fleshy power, and the pleasure of our mortality, our onistic intoxication, our cannibalism, our being rude, really lesser of the world's species.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I did not know Michael personally, but I had an online acquaintance with him. Early in the century, I had a poem published in Big Bridge, and I knew him through Jonathan Penton, who actually managed Big Bridge, and it was probably more Jonathan's thing to get me in the magazine. Later on, let's see, I know I've interviewed him, I've published him like on my blogazine. He wrote a blurb on the back cover of Left Hand Dharma, a book of mine. We have gone about 45 minutes, and it's my plan to actually put a performance of Michael at the end, which he sent me and was published in one of my Gas Poetry Art Music video shows. And I'm going to end with that. I think that's plenty long, actually. It'll be about an hour. But is anyone else really yearning to read something else?
I could actually. I could read The Fire. Yes. Quickly. So this is called The Fire. And just before, I must mention that isn't it surreal that three of us who read Michael all read the same poem? Two worlds, right? Three of us read it and all of us read Two Worlds, right? Yeah.
I might
So
cut
this is
mine out.
That's wonderful. So now this is The Fire. If the fire is from the fireball lily growing in the wilderness, its incandescence wooing the frisky squirrels in the leafy branches, then it's a fire to swoon over. If it's a fire in a trudging laborer's belly, arms akimbo, hair disheveled, shielding his hurting eyes with a sunburnt hand, then it's a fire to douse with help. If it's the fire of protest from enraged millions all over the globe, aghast at choked breaths from human throats, then it's a fire to worry our pretty little heads about. And if it's the fire of enriched love, oozing from mankind of every race, stamped in the Creator's image, cuddling babies of myriad hues, then it's a fire to dance the Bhangra for. Ahu ahu, ahu ahu, ahu ahu. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think I'll read a different one with Michael and maybe cut the other one out. No one has read Visions of Peace, right?
Yes.
Between huge blanket of black clouds and ragged gray mouth of cityscape, eye of green morning light, wind raking bay, thunder hum, thrashing voice of branches and leaves, storm blow away for another more pleasant distortion, not boredom, but interest in someone not found here. Two pelicans too far away to know what they're doing. I put on my glasses. 3 pelicans, 4, 7, any amount of floating and flight, even that jet plane going the other way.
It was. I do want to say that I referenced the post-atomic love song. I called it the anti-atomic love song. I just want to make sure you know that it's the post-atomic love song. And, that's a book of Michael's that we all should have. It's really beautiful.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. I think we'll let this be it unless someone else is really wanting to contribute something else. Everybody satisfied? All right. I think it was fine. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And I'll say goodbye for now.
Thank you, Belinda.
All right. Nice to see you all, by the way.
I think it's great that the three poems were read because each one had a different interpretation. Something different came out of each reading. So I thought that was great.
All right.
For what it's worth.
I'm sorry. That's all that I'm sorry. That's what I had prepared. I should have real quick did what you did and found another. I'm sorry about that. We all
I
have the
printed out several, and it was a good one, and one of the first ones that popped up.
Yes.
That's fine.
Thank
Okay.
you for having us.
All right.
Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you so much for coming, and especially Billy for 4:30 a.m. in India. We're honored.
It's a labor of love.
All righty. So I'll probably work on this tonight and have it up by tomorrow afternoon or so, because that's how I operate.
Beautiful.
All righty. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. I'm going to end the meeting.
Thank you.
Hi. For 100,000 Poets for Change in tribute to Michael Rothenberg, Part 2, I would like to start with Santosh Bakaya. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Yeah. Santosh Bakaya from India.
Oh, yes, from India, who has really been up for a good while waiting for this. That's why we're starting with her.
Thank you.
Can
you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine. And you may read one or two pieces, however you feel.
Thank you. It is early morning here in India, and good evening, 100,000 Poets for Change. I am Dr. Santosh Bakaya from India. It is morning here, and I believe that every morning is a new beginning, full of promises, full of hope. And we, the poets, as Shelley said, are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. And we need to spread the goodness, peace, compassion, sense of justice, ecological sanity of Michael Rothenberg throughout the world. So I want to recite a poem that I just read the other day, and this is Let the News Die, which Michael Rothenberg wrote on October 8th, 2017 for Dennis Formento on his birthday. And if I have the time, then I'll recite a few lines from my own poem. So this is the poem, Let the News Die. Let the news die under the willow, the newspaper soaked and moldy with lies. The storm comes through, and no one the worse for it. Coffee brewed 3 times, I awoke to find destruction, but only found quite dark. Then the silhouette of worn out buildings, the faint flapping of a tarpaulin sheltering the moor. Then green okra and squash sprinkled with showers. That must have fallen in my sleep and blessed the garden. Hypervigilance is not a responsibility or engagement. Exhaustion benefits nothing. There is that squirrel Dennis pushed off the road, bug-eyed in rigor. It did nothing for her. It did nothing for her, darting between traffic in a small town. So this is a very nice poem that I read the other day. And if I had the time, I would like to recite a small poem of mine too. Here it is. And this is from my book, What is the Meter of the Dictionary? It was just launched a couple of months back. And the poem is The Sparrow Singing on the Wheelbarrow. I like the way you roll, dear little sparrow, chirping unfettered on that rusted wheelbarrow. How I wish I could chirp like you too, deliberately mangle my tenses and recreate that lost world. Unafraid to be sued for my utterances, just because I have the gall to love all, the black, brown, fair, the short, the tall. I wish I could have your untethered freedom, hum your liberating notes, and sail my colorful paper boats like a happy child. Are you seditious? No way. Love your sassiness any day. Doing things your own way is not sedition. Did I tell you? I love your lyrical rendition. Chirp on, little sparrow, chirp on. Your ditties offer unending possibilities. I feel dad speaking to me all the time. But I know my prudent father would rather steer clear of news of these grotesque times. I bow to his sagacity. You make me open my inner eye and see. You wake me to the fragrance of a new dawn, feeling free. For freedom, did you say? Do not give me your expert opinion, pray. Life itself is a conundrum, so why worry? Be in no hurry. Do not cower. Sing your sassy songs. Sing your sassy songs. Go have a whirlwind of fun. You still have time. You still have time. You still have time till the guns once again take over. I like the way you roll, dear little sparrow, chirping unfettered on that rusted wheelbarrow. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
sir.
much. And thank you for your dedication and hanging in there with us.
Thank you.
Chris Bodor, new Beat Poet Laureate for the state of Florida. You knew Michael personally, did you not?
I did, and it's kind of bittersweet. Congratulations to you, Belinda, for getting the distinction of Texas Beat Poet Laureate. And you know, we had the festival up in Connecticut where Debbie was announcing the new Beat Poet Laureates, and it was rather bittersweet for me to just 2 weeks ago be in that collection of poets face to face. And George Wallace was at my poetry festival this past April, and him and I were talking and reminiscing about Michael. And George himself told me that he got to know Michael in California way back when. And for me, I got associated with Michael through 100,000 Poets for Change, like everyone else on the internet. It was that incredible Facebook situation where we're suddenly in touch. And I've been doing open mic poetry readings on the last Sunday of every month since 2009. So we just started at that point, making September, the last Sunday of the month, would be 100,000 Poets for Change. So Michael was interested in moving to Florida. I believe Terry's mom was in Florida and she was getting older, so they wanted to relocate. And Terry did come, and I had a realtor friend, and she looked all over St. Augustine. But then Michael announced that they were going to move to the Tallahassee area. And ever since then, I've tried to get Michael up for different poetry events, and like some big type of events, like have him and his band play. And it kind of accelerated 2 years ago, where we had a hurricane from about 5 years ago that stopped him from coming. He was on the bill. We had this great 100,000 Poets for Change symposium in mid-September, and it had to just be canceled, dead in the water, because of hurricane that was coming through. So Michael and I agreed that this opportunity 2 years ago was going to be the do-over to get Michael to St. Augustine, where he was going to be the keynote speaker. And so probably January of 2022, we started like talking a lot on the phone. And he wanted to bring up 3 band members to perform with him. And 2 of the band members got a obligation that came up through their university where they worked. And so Michael was telling me, I have to find 2 new people to perform with me. And he got through that fine. And then it's like in March, he called me up really just like kind of like the wind was out of his sails. And he said, you know, I just got diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and I'm going to start chemotherapy. And he didn't even want me to tell anyone. He hadn't talked to his band members. And so there's a YouTube recording of him performing for the last time, and it's an amazing performance. And he said to me that he didn't tell his band members he wanted to have that performance. But because he was diagnosed a month before my poetry festival, I told him that we really should pull the plug on it because it would be unfair for him to be in chemo and then traveling the 6 hours up to me in my part of North Florida in St. Augustine. So I said, let's just make the decision to take you off the bill, and you can concentrate on your health. And that whole upheaval of he's like, I really wanted to get paid, and 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 do the performance. I said, just get healthy, and then Gabor, my dear Hungarian friend, he told me that, oh, Michael got, he's in stage 4, and he passed within a couple of weeks of that, around this time last year. So it's just to have someone so vibrant, so full of life, and such a mentor to me, to just suddenly, in the middle of our animated discussions, one conversation, it suddenly turned because of his mortality, and it was just a real, because I got so excited listening to a CD and imagining him coming up and performing, and what a great boost it would be to have him just dedicate his weekend to the St. Augustine Poetry Festival, and then to just say, let's pull the plug on it, and let's have you concentrate on your health. And it's just it's a big blow, and I know that anytime I'm in touch with Terry, his widow, I just say that he is not forgotten. He's touched by so many, and we are here in St. Augustine. The last Sunday of the month will be a week from today, and we're having 100,000 Poets for Change reading, and we'll obviously pay tribute to Michael and his spirit, and just open up the mic on the subject of change. Do you want to change yourself? Do you want to change the world? What is it that you would like to change? So
Thank
thanks
you.
for letting me be part of this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, you want to turn your camera or a mic on there? Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, how are you?
I know you have a long history with Michael, and you actually produced pretty much his Big Bridge magazine for a few years, didn't you?
Yeah, for a few years I was the webmaster and we worked on it. And I don't know if anybody's talked about Big Bridge yet in the first half of the show. Okay, so yeah, I definitely wanted to say a few words about that. This was just a massive and massively cool literary magazine. It was an annual. It ran from 97 to 2016. That's 19 annual issues. 97 back when the web was very new. A great number of people have worked in editorial roles on it. Terry, of course, for many years. Carl Jung did some fantastic stuff. Nancy Victoria Davis did some amazing images. Jane Joyce Nakagawa, did a lot of great stuff on it. And this was everybody was in Big Bridge. Philip Whalen, Ed Dorn, David Meltzer, Joanne Kiger, every surviving beat, Ira Cohen, Gary Snyder, Anselm Hollow, Michael McClure were all in Big Bridge. And at the same time, Big Bridge always had new authors in every issue, lots of new authors. These issues were huge. And there was always this fantastic combination of household literary names, to the degree any literary name is household, but the surviving beats, these wonderful newcomers to the scene. There was a great New Orleans feature. There was Blue Poets in Red States. That was a great linked poem that we all worked on. As some of the political situations got darker with George W. Bush and all that. For years, it was just amazing, wonderful thing. And the whole thing's online. It's bigbridge.org. I'd encourage anyone who's watching this to check it out. It's really an amazing thing, and so much wonderful stuff to read and see. This incredible Phil Oakes feature. Yeah, great stuff. So if you're interested, I thought I wanted to read from one of his older books, and I didn't see any on my shelf, so I went online, and the prices have all skyrocketed. But I did get the Paris journals from 1998. If you'd
I published that. I'm
Oh,
speaking it. Yeah.
so good.
I'm gonna put my view on. I'm sorry, I look terrible, but it's what being sick is all about.
It happens.
Oh, hi, you look all right.
Oh my God.
I saw you briefly. Don't worry about it. We look like we look. You're beautiful. You got a beautiful spirit, and you look beautiful physically too. So you don't look sick. Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
Jonathan, and Suzi, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to read from chapter 2 here. I'll read 2. I guess we're doing 2. Okay. Face the music. Dreams. Wake up from music dreams. Listening, singing in my head. Where am I? Controlling. Where am I? Repeats. Evita, Elvira, Evita, Elvira. Drums of grace, Elvira. And dreams become responsibilities. When it's done, dreaming won't shut off. 3 a.m. wake to give head rest from music, but must go to sleep to get in new time groove. I'm not living anyone else's life. Why keep asking myself what someone else would do? What would someone else, hero, do where I am? A hero would celebrate. I celebrate liberation, declaration of independence from wife, lover, old head patterns, mind waves, go back to sleep and face the music. But first I must read a Russian fairy tale, then more dreams. That was May 23rd, 1998 in Paris.
Thank you very much.
Sure. One more, stop there.
We probably should go on to Suzi right now. As I'm putting this together, it's going to be well over an hour. I really appreciate that. And thanks for letting me slip into Big Bridge. It was thanks to you. Okay, Suzi, I know that you worked with Michael. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with Michael or working with him and what y'all did together.
Thank you. It's a very long history with Michael. We met about 25 years ago or so. And when both of us were looking for a way to take care of Philip Whalen, and Phil was the responsibility, let's say, of my late brother Robert, who predeceased him. My brother died in his 30s and left Philip, how are we going to take care of Philip? They had Michael had said, well, they don't, he was in San Francisco. But anyway, so we both had the same mission, and we thought, well, we should meet up. And I was living in New York, and I think he was still living in California in those days, but we met up in San Francisco and went to see Phil. And that was the beginnings of Poets in Need. So I stayed with that board for 20 years or so. Went off it. Actually, I probably don't have the timeline exactly right, but I was on it until Michael died, and then I just didn't have the heart for it. So I believe Terry is there in my place. But what I found so fascinating about Michael is this person that I didn't know called me and said, yeah, okay, I understand. I know who you are. And we're having this problem, and that Philip is not actively dying, and of course I burst out laughing because it was Michael saying it. And he was hilarious about all things life, death, and, Zen and whatever. He just, the sound of his voice was fascinating to me. So anyway, we got together. Poets in Need happened. I had a literary journal in those days, Fish Drum, which I had inherited from my brother. And then we started doing proper books, and like Perfect Bound, non-literary magazines, just books of poetry. And Paris Journals was the first. And he had stayed in my apartment in Paris. Another long story, but I guess Terry, I'm just not remembering that timeline either. And then came back, and then we worked kind of remotely on Paris journals. And as working with Michael was very lively, a lot of fun, a lot of fighting. I've never really had that level of excitement with anybody I've ever published a book with. It was absolutely extraordinary. And so we just kept intermingling. That happened. I was running a series in New York of stage readings called Wordplay, and Michael came and read with Ira Cohen, and he came for a reading of Fistrum, and he came for a whole bunch of different things. And then I guess the ultimate thing that we did concerning Fistrum was Continuous Flame, which is an homage to Phil Whalen. And we had started it when Philip was still alive, collecting things and asking permissions for poetry and stuff like that. And it's if anybody wants one, I will send you one in the mail. We'll figure out a way to do that. I'll give Belinda my address or my email address, and please ask for one. Because there are a lot of them. We actually sold a lot of them, but you know how the poetry business is. There's no money and very little glory, but you've got a lot of copies of books at the end. So that was a great project also. And then I did some stuff for In Big Bridge, like I wrote some stuff, and all of this went on. And then the last thing that we did together that was a big project before 100,000 Poets for Change, which I'll tell you about what I did with Michael in that, was something called Poem, and it was Poets on an Exchange Mission. And we had this idea. I was part of a French-American cultural exchange board as like a trustee in this thing in New York. And I thought, they do such crap. Why can't we do very difficult translations of modern French and American poetry and see how to make these translations work? And interest of mine, interest of Michael's, we got a grant, and we managed to, we went to France, we went to Cassis together with 4 other poets, and we met with translators, and we made a book, and we, were staying at like the Camargo Foundation. I don't know, it was all very amazing time getting to Cassis with a bunch of poets, like how we sort of finagled all of that. We did live readings there in a very old amphitheater outdoors, with like the world's greatest sweet spot to read in. And, we fished and cooked our own dinner. And I mean, it was like a great time for all. And then there was like the other part of the project, which was bringing French translators to the States and doing that side of it. So anyway, I'm not explaining it very well, but that poem was a very cool project, and it was a thing that no one really cared about. There were like 5 of us who thought this was a good idea. And I think by the end of the project, there were maybe 6 or 7 people who thought it was a good idea. I remember we got sort of yelled at by this board, like, you went all the way to France to get 40 people to listen to poetry. I'm like, it's 40 more than you have, So, yeah, I think just in the passion department, it's something we count on Michael for. And I'm also passionate about words and poets and art. So then life changed. I was running a circus school. I will not get into how that happened to me, but have been a performer most of my life and managed to find myself in the circus. Okay, I have a circus school. So then Michael and Terry are doing 100,000 Poets for Change. And I figured, let's do something with my school. Let's do some presentation that's different. So what I came up with was a vertical representation of poetry. So the constraint was it had to involve spoken word. There had to be text, and some part of your presentation had to be off the ground. So, and what we would get were 10 or so different experiments of what that could be. And it was really, it was incredibly rangy. Some of it was absolutely brilliant. Some of it was what we call, fiber and roughage, so, well, it's in there, taking up time. And it was super, super cool. So that went on. I ran that school for a decade. And we tried to do it annually. It didn't always work like that. I think we did 7 of them and recorded them, and it was part of 100,000 Poets. And at some point or another, Michael and Terry came to New York for one of them, and it was all kinds of great. So I like to say about this loss, it's unbearable for me to be without Michael. He's my last link to my literary world, and the last person that I was excited about doing projects with. And I lost a few other people, and we had mutually along the way. And then this it's a very, very cold and lonely world without Michael, because it doesn't matter how he was feeling or what he was up to. There was always, let's do this insane thing and let's make this weird thing happen, as he did. And of course, you guys know his resume, but this was just where we overlapped. I needed his energy for all of these things. I never would have thought, oh, let's have poetry that has a vertical dimension, like people are ignoring the ceiling. He was like, great, let's do that. Let's do this bad idea together that we think is fabulous. So that's a big, big hole in my heart for sure. And I miss him terribly. I'm not going to read anything as I'm a little bleary-eyed, but thank you for the opportunity to talk about Michael and my co-conspirator in fun and creative and literary adventures, and they really were adventures. So, and thanks for reading from Paris journals. That was he and the graphic designer that I've worked with, a guy that I was a dancer on Broadway with this other guy, and he became a graphic designer, this guy, Brad Miskell. And I fought endlessly over that, over the cover, over the look of it, over the font, over the spacing on the pages. It was great fighting. It was just like everybody was so opinionated and really wanted to do something great. And the book is really a gem, I think. I mean, it really came out like the physical book feels good. People loved it. People still love it. I still give it out. I still have handing them out various things, party favors, have a Paris journal, just do it, just read it. You'll be happy about that. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for indulging me.
Thank you.
My croaky thoughts.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad we did part 2, since for some reason we needed to do that. I guess that will be all. It's really going to be like an hour and a half altogether or something. So thank you. Super. As was all valuable. And thank you for being patient with me and the technology.
These are by nature impossible, right? It's as hard as making an actual party or a garage band. It's just like to get everybody together to do something is kind of what we all do in a way. So, and Michael would have liked the disarray for sure.
Well, I know he so enjoyed when we were doing our interview. One of my cats was in here. I didn't realize it was because I always close the door, but it was already in here, and it suddenly jumped up in front of the screen. He enjoyed the heck out of that. He says, "Don't cut that out. Leave that in."
Oh, and there's another nice cat.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say goodbye and end the meeting. And once again, thank you so much.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to see you all. Okay. Bye-bye.
There will be queens and presidents, laureates and slaves, cicada and the calamity of brass bells in a chorus at 2 a.m. when the shadows stretch and bend across the heavy doors of the spirit-swollen church. Poets from Paris, Sacramento, and Kuala Lumpur will begin a serenade, take on a puppet Broadway, stoned choreography in a piazza, while children in pajamas crawl out on moonlit balconies, watch through curtains of night-drying laundry, dripping blouses and large pink underwear. The dance and fermentation of the spoken word. It will come. The change. It will come. The change. There will be a quake, a mutant rhyme, a seagull cry, then the change will come. A breeze from the broad blue Tyrrhenian Sea, the resurrection of green and every lava-buried breath, disabling Kabul and utopian Abrachi. It will come. It will come. The change. The change. And then the children will go out, back to bed. The police will never say a word. The clock will unwind, and the poets will march in celebration of another broken law, another pantomime of insurrection. It will come, the change. The change.